Hello and welcome back to the Building HVAC Science podcast. It's our goal to create better, more knowledgeable HVAC and building performance pros by helping the two professions better understand each other, with the ultimate goal of helping our listeners create better environments for all people. Today's episode, Eric and I get to speak with Stephen Roth, founder of CarmelSoft and current owner of Hands Down Software. He traces his multi-generational journey in HVAC from the 20s and talks about moving through various phases all the way to the point of relaunching Carmel with one of the industry's first mobile HVAC app suites. He discusses some custom projects he's worked on, plus the acquisition and revitalization of the ubiquitous hands-down psychrometric chart software. Looking ahead, Stephen gives us a view into what AI might do, accelerating data entry, plotting psychrometric processes by prompt, and facilitating web-based collaboration, all in service of the core mission, helping technicians and engineers accurately size systems and design energy-efficient buildings. A couple notable quotes from the episode, both by Stephen. Our mission is to help technicians and engineers easily and accurately design energy-efficient buildings. And the city of Phoenix wouldn't exist without our industry. Okay, listen into this episode and take a look at the links in the show notes as we get a chance to have a conversation with Stephen Roth about psychrometrics, mobile apps, and the future of HVAC.
Hey, everybody out there in podcast land. Welcome back to the Building HVAC Science podcast. Eric Kaiser over here. Mr. Overkill Bill Spohn over there. Good afternoon, Bill. And good afternoon to our guest today, Mr. Stephen Roth with Carmel Software. You may have heard of that before. I know I've used it once or twice. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Eric.
I guess the backstory. Tell us about your journey and how CarmelSoft got started.
Like a lot of people in this industry, I got introduced to this industry through a family business. And in fact, in the 20s, and I'm not talking the 2020s, I'm talking the 1920s. My grandfather actually came over here from Eastern Europe. He ended up in Ohio, joined his brother, and they started a commercial roofing company. And they thrived during the Depression and especially after World War II. And they actually soon teamed up with this upstart developer by the name of Edward DiBartolo.
Oh.
And he was the guy who started developing shopping centers. So they started installing all these roofs on shopping centers throughout the nation through the 50s, 60s. And while they were doing that, they started installing HVAC rooftop units and boilers in these shopping centers. And in the 60s, my father and his brothers joined the company called Roth Brothers. And they really turned it into a professional organization. And they implemented a service division to do HVAC service. And then in the 70s, they started this small division called the Energy Management Division. Today it's called Building Automation Systems. And they started installing energy management systems in all these malls, HVAC systems, developed a national service division, so doing service for chain stores throughout the nation. And it thrived. And then by the 80s, my formative years, two things happened to me. One is I fell in love with software programming. My parents bought me a Radio Shack computer back in the early 80s, and they literally never saw me again. I was in my room just programming.
Not a Tandy 1000.
No, it was a Radio Shack Model 3.
Oh, wow. That even predated the TRS-80 that I owned.
Yeah. Well, it was the TRS-80 Model 3, yeah. And then the late 80s, I went to university and studied mechanical engineering. So I combined both of those. And after I graduated college, I actually worked for my father's company, my family's business. And I was a HVAC design engineer and also an HVAC project manager. And during summers at college, I would work on the roofs. I would also follow the HVAC technicians around and do service, refrigerant recharges and all that. So I really learned the business. And by the mid-90s, when I was working for the family business, I started using software, and it was DOS-based clunky software. So I started developing Windows versions of HVAC load-calc software, duct sizing, pipe sizing, all the typical software. And also by the mid-90s, my family sold the mechanical contracting firm that they owned to a large utility. So I ended up going off on my own and creating CarmelSoft. So by the late 90s, early 2000s, I was licensing this software to lots of small and large companies. And then in the early 2000s, Autodesk approached me. Autodesk, they make AutoCAD. And they were on a real push to implement analysis functionality into their various CAD tools, including their tool called Revit. And Revit is, for those of you who don't know out there, Revit is a building information modeling authoring tool. So they actually acquired my software assets, and I came on board, worked for Autodesk, and I became a Revit product manager and helped implement the software that I had developed into Revit. And it actually ended up in the software for over a decade, which is a lifetime in the software world. I left a couple years later and restarted Carmel. They didn't buy Carmel, they bought the assets. And right around that time, mobile was taken off. So I developed a whole line of mobile HVAC apps. We were actually probably the first HVAC mobile apps out there. This was like 2010 when the iPhone was really starting to take off. And then since then, we've licensed our mobile apps, but we've also done a lot of software consulting. And so we were hired by like Carrier and Mitsubishi Electric to develop custom equipment selection software, especially for their VRF line of equipment. And then we were also hired by ASHRAE to develop energy benchmarking, web-based software, and SMACNA to develop an online ductilator and also an exhaust system layout tool. So we've done a lot of software consulting in addition to licensing our mobile apps. And then just about 2 years ago, I was approached by the owner of Hands Down Software, which develops that ubiquitous psychrometric chart desktop software tool. And he was looking to retire. And I've always loved that software tool. I thought it was just a very well-designed software tool. It's very popular out there, used by tens of thousands of engineers. And he was looking to retire. And he said, "Hey, Steve, do you want to acquire my business?" And I looked at it and I said, "Sure." So about a year and a half ago, I ended up closing that deal. And now we own Hands Down Software, which is, like I said, a desktop psychrometric tool, which is pretty much ubiquitous in the industry. And since then, it's really taken off. It hadn't been updated in probably a decade. So we just released an update a couple months ago and people are just eating it up. It's just a great tool. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's my story up to that point. Also, I'm very involved with ASHRAE. Such a great organization. I'm on technical committees. I'm a chair of a standards committee called Standard SPC 224, which is a building information modeling standard. So I really like being involved in the industry in addition to running my own software business. So that's kind of it in a 5 to 10 minute nutshell.
Wow. You've touched so many different parts of the industry over those years. It's really amazing. It must have helped you develop a lot of insights. Is it propel like a mission for CarmelSoft? Is that, how would you succinctly describe your mission?
As we all know, when we talk with people who are not in the industry, they don't really understand it. A lot of people don't even understand the acronym HVAC. I have to explain it to them.
Yeah.
When people ask me, what do you do for a living? I try to make my elevator pitch in layman's terms. And I like to say that the mission of CarmelSoft is to develop desktop, web, and mobile applications for HVAC technicians, contractors, and engineers to help them easily and accurately design energy efficient buildings. And that's it in a nutshell. And if they ask me a little bit more detail, I'll go into more of the HVAC vernacular, which we all know can be quite overwhelming. But that's the mission in a nutshell, especially in layman's terms.
You must receive a lot of feedback, or perhaps compliments, feedback, suggestions. What does that look like? Does that shape your next things?
Well, let me give you an example. Like I said, this Hands Down software that we acquired, this desktop psychrometric chart software, people love this software tool. That's one of the reasons why I acquired it, because I could just hear the passion in it. Often people don't love software. I'll get feedback all the time saying, "You know what, Steve? I really love this tool. It is just easy to use. It's so flexible, lots of features, lots of customization capabilities." And so I get a lot of feedback like that. And that tells me this software is really needed in the industry. Now, you would think, I was talking to my dad the other day, and he goes, "Well, why don't people just make copies of that psychrometric chart in the ASHRAE Handbook of Fundamentals," which we all see when we get that book every 4 years. And I tell him, well, there's a big difference. The one, that psychrometric chart that's in the Handbook of Fundamentals is black and white. It's used for 0 feet elevation. There's no customization capabilities, obviously. It goes from a minimum to maximum temperature and humidity ratio. And the nice thing about having a software tool is you can totally customize the entire chart itself for different elevations. As you know, the relationship of water and air is a lot different at sea level than in a city like Denver, which is 5,000 feet elevation. Plus, you can customize the line colors. And what people really love about the tool is the fact you can add your corporate logo to it. So it really looks great in these engineering reports. And in fact, we have a lot of marketing people calling us to license the software because they like the way that you can customize and make the chart look really good and helps engineering reports look that much better. So we get a lot of great feedback regarding that tool, just the flexibility, and people are passionate about it, which is great.
Excellent. Eric, you got to have some questions here.
Oh, I got a ton of questions. A few of them probably stem from actually having used Carmel software over the years as a technician, because you find it useful on desktop. I found it useful on the mobile app. A lot of neat things come out of it. There's a lot of really cool features in a lot of the different programs. I'm curious, like, how do you watch the industries to figure out what to put in them, how to make them useful, and how to really make sure that they're what the technicians need out there in the field?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I haven't touched upon our mobile apps too much, but like I said, we started developing these mobile apps back in around 2010 or 11, just as the iPhone was taking off. And to date, we literally have hundreds of thousands of downloads of those apps, which for this industry, that's pretty good. And some examples of the types of apps we offer are a simple PT chart app, which is actually a free app, a simple duct sizer, all the way to a pretty complex iPad app called the HVAC ResLoad J, which is an ACCA Manual J8 app, which is used by HVAC technicians out in the field to do cooling and heating load calcs. This app is actually approved by ACCA. So the reports from this app can be submitted to the local municipality to get a retrofit permit. Eric, you were asking, how do we track what kind of features they want? Well, what's really cool about mobile apps is you can embed code, whether it's Google Analytics code, in these apps. So we can actually see what parts of the app people are using. Now, of course, this is all anonymous. We don't know who is using it, but we can see what part of the app they're using. And in fact, we can actually track where people are using the apps throughout the world. And like I said, it's all anonymous. I have no idea who it is, but I can see physically where people are using the apps throughout the world when they're using them. So we can really track usage in terms of when they're using it, where they're using it, and what features in the app they're using. And it does provide us good feedback on what we should be focusing on in terms of what features in the app. So that the Google Analytics and other types of analytics that we've embedded in the apps really does help out.
Do you do anything like beta testing or contractor feedback from technicians that are in the field or people doing work in the field like that? I know a lot of our listeners may be interested in something like that.
Yeah, we do a couple things. One is we do hold probably quarterly live webinars where we send out a mass email via constant contact to probably 4,000 or 5,000 stakeholders, people who've expressed interest in our software over the years. And so we'll hold these quarterly webinars where they're actually training webinars, and we have people attending and they can ask questions and provide feedback. So that's one way that, yes, we do gather feedback from end users on what should be added, what bugs they may be encountering, etc. And of course, we also get phone calls, emails, offering advice or asking about new features. So yeah, we're always open to feedback from end users, and that's how it dictates our to-do list in terms of updates to the software.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's good to hear that you're listening to the field, because I think that's where a lot of things get developed, get a lot of great ideas from people that are doing it every day.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
There's a lot of work in software development, and especially that two-letter phrase, AI. Is that impacting anything you do, or is there a future where it would be incorporated?
Obviously, everyone's talking about AI, and for good reason. Like any powerful tool, it's both a blessing and a curse. We use it internally to help develop some code. I mean, it can't write an entire software tool, but it certainly helps us write specific, what are called classes and functions, which actually speeds up our development. So it's been a great tool in that sense. But I think there's some downsides to the AI, especially I see my son at university right now, and I know he's using AI to probably write some of his, write entire papers, but I think it's taking some of the challenge out of actually critical thinking. So that's my problem with AI. But yes, it is a powerful tool. Everyone's talking about it. We're using it as a tool to help us develop software to speed up software development. We also use it to help write some of our documentation. So it definitely is a time saver. Now, in terms of actually implementing AI into our tools, I could see that. We're not currently doing that, but I can see that happening in the near future, especially with, say, for example, I touched upon our HVAC ResLoad J tool, which is our ACCA Manual J8 heating and cooling load-calc tool. I still have contractors and technicians struggling with that tool, not because it's difficult to use, but because there's a lot of data you need to enter into that tool to give accurate results. Think about it. You have to enter all the data about, say, a home, the wall and roof and window square footages, the types of walls, the U values, the R values, the emissivity values. So there's a ton of information to enter about a home to get an accurate heating and cooling result. Well, wouldn't it be great if AI could automate a lot of that? And that would save a tremendous amount of time. I don't think we're there quite yet, but I see the potential for that. Another example is our Psychrometric desktop tool, hands down. Once again, users are manually plotting HVAC processes on the chart. Wouldn't it be great if AI was able to automatically do that based upon some verbal prompts? And we're looking into that too. So there is a lot of power that could be added to our applications using AI.
I'm looking at your website right now, and we're going to definitely put a link to it in the show notes here for people to follow up. And that's CarmelSoft. Carmel. That's not the candy. It must be a city, right?
Yeah, CarmelSoft. Yep, CarmelSoft.
CarmelSoft.com. And it looks like you have a lot of different calculators. Are they individual programs or do they exist in a suite? How does they all work together?
Are you looking at the mobile ones or?
The app bundles I was looking at.
So those are the mobile apps. And like I said, we have a bunch of simple and more complex mobile apps. So we have these real simple PT charts, which is amazingly popular. We've had literally hundreds of thousands of people downloading that app because it's free and everyone loves free. And it's a powerful free tool to more complex tools like our HVAC load-calc app. And so we do have bundles which users can buy. So they get a bunch of our apps together. So they get the duct sizer and pipe sizing and psychrometrics and the PT chart all in one. So yeah, those are some of the different packages we offer in terms of our mobile apps.
And so there's apps for iPad to utilize the full screen capability. And then there's apps for mobile that are repurposed to the smaller screen format.
Exactly. Yeah. And so like the load-calc app, which requires a lot of inputs, that is more for the iPad since you need more screen real estate to be able to enter all that data. Technicians love these mobile tools because before mobile, you had to either write down that information onto a pad of paper, go back to your office and manually enter it into your desktop or your laptop. But now with mobile, you can do it all out in the field. And that's really powerful because the homeowner can get an immediate result in terms of what type of equipment they require. Also, the technician can immediately email those reports, those ACCA-approved reports, to the local city municipality to get that permit. So it's really powerful. And technicians love the mobile capabilities of these apps because it really saves a lot of time.
Do you have any stories where people have come to you and said, I resisted using software and now you showed me the way? Any kind of stories like that where people have had their minds or their hesitations transformed?
Software for the masses has been out, for 40 plus years, since the 80s, since the IBM came out. And HVAC software has been out for 35 plus years. So a lot of technicians, contractors are used to using software on their computers, on their desktop or on their laptops. So in terms of mobile came out, like I said, about 2010 when the iPhone really started becoming popular. And that was definitely a paradigm shift for a lot of these technicians because now, like I said, they were able to use it out in the field as opposed to using it on their computers. And I think this opened it up software usage to a lot more technicians and contractors because we get calls all the time saying, hey, this is the first time I'm using software to do load calcs. They were most of the time using the ACCA Manual J handbook. Inside there are forms that you can fill out and to manually calculate your loads. So these mobile apps opened a whole new world to a lot of these technicians to embrace software because, like I said, it's easy to use and you can use it out in the field. So that's one example of how software has become available to a lot of these technicians and contractors.
And it seems like you become such a master at it that companies are approaching you to do their programming too.
Yeah, so that's been one part of our business, which I've really enjoyed, is the software consulting end. And as I mentioned in my intro a little bit, we've done consulting for a lot of the major HVAC manufacturers, Carrier, Mitsubishi Electric, Trane. Also, we've done software customization for ASHRAE and for SMACNA. And I really enjoy doing that because I get to work directly with my clients and we create a real tool that is really customized to their needs. And one example is ASHRAE. We developed a tool called ASHRAE Building EQ, and it's basically an energy benchmarking tool. So what a building owner can actually go to the site, enter utility information and information about the building, and it will return a score regarding what their energy usage is compared to a like building type in a similar climate zone. So it's like an energy benchmarking tool. So we developed that for ASHRAE, and they've been pushing it it's been out for about 7 years now. So I've enjoyed that. Another example of a custom app was for Mitsubishi Electric. So we developed their VRF equipment selection software tool. It's a desktop tool. And what was exciting about that tool is they eventually took over development in-house. But I still hear of resellers and OEMs, and when I go to ASHRAE meetings, using that software to do their equipment selection. So that software tool has become very popular in the industry, and it feels good to know that, hey, we developed that. So I like doing custom software development, and we're still doing it today for large and small companies.
Again, I'm looking at your website and I see an equipment locator, and that's a free one.
It's free, but there's also a monthly recurring fee that we do charge to store the information. So you can store a couple. That tool is cool. It allows users to enter information about equipment, allows technicians to enter information about equipment that they're servicing. So they enter the building information, the information about the equipment itself, and then also information about the service that they're providing. And it's a cloud tool. So it sends information to the cloud and it can be shared with other technicians within the office. And we've embedded that app into all of our apps. And like I said, yes, it's free, but if you want to store information in the cloud, that is a monthly recurring fee.
Makes sense.
So the freemium model.
Yeah, today's clouds are not free.
Right, right.
Some of them are even low hanging.
Yes.
Yes.
What do you see as some of the future for mobile apps, maybe with Carmel? Do you see developing more or different things or evolving what you have even further? And do you even want to talk about that?
Yeah, I don't want to reveal too much. One interesting thing is, I'll be blunt, I am not good at predicting the future. AI, I did not predict. I was delving a little bit into it maybe 3 years ago, but I had no idea how it would literally take over industries at this point. So I'm not great at predicting the future, but I do know that mobile apps will continue to be utilized by technicians, contractors, engineers far into the future because they are so convenient. I'm sure they will become easier to use, especially when you start embedding AI capabilities. So instead of users manually entering the data into these apps, they'll be able to just use a chatbot to say, hey, I see a south wall that's 20 feet wide by 12 feet high, and it will automatically enter that information into the application as opposed to them manually doing that. So that will definitely be a time saver. And eventually, maybe especially the load-calc app, will be able to automatically extract data from certain data sources out there to derive a lot of this information about a building or a home. And then all the technician would need to do is tweak some of the data and do that load calc. So literally that load calc could be done in less than a minute. I see that as a little bit down the road, but it's definitely coming. So that's one example of what I see in the future. Other examples, like I said, are desktop psychrometric chart app from Hands Down. I could see AI really enhancing that application a lot in terms of using a chatbot to basically say the type of process you want to plot and how you want the chart to look. So that's another prediction. And another one is web-based psychrometric charts too. We're actually working with ASHRAE to develop one of those to allow engineers to basically collaborate in terms of the psychrometric chart, because currently the psychrometric chart that we offer is a desktop tool. So we're working on a web component. So now engineers will be able to upload those processes to the web and then be able to collaborate with other engineers. Just like, a lot of these Microsoft Word, Excel, a lot of these tools are now web-based, Office 365, that allows for collaboration. I envision more collaboration, especially in terms of design tools like psychrometric charts and even load calcs. So those are some of my possible predictions for the future, but don't hold me to it because, like I said, it's hard to predict the future.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sometimes it's cloudy,
Exactly.
but we can tell that if we have a psychrometric program.
That's right.
It's all about how much water's in that air. It's interesting. I tell some of my friends who aren't in the industry, yeah, I acquired this psychrometric chart desktop software. And so they have no idea what psychrometrics is.
How do you spell psycho? That's the question I get.
Psychro. It's not psycho.
Psychro. And everybody looks at me like, what?
Psychometrics is actually a term used for some type of
Testing.
some type of psychological testing.
It's any kind of testing, and it has to do with test data coming back out of like evaluation testing and things like that.
Right.
I was on a NATE committee once, and they talked about psychometrics. Yes.
Right. But a lot of people, even in our industry, still misspell it. It's psychrometric. But then I explained to them how important relative humidity is in all these different types of buildings. For example, data centers. We have all the major data center companies license our software. Because think about it. If the relative humidity is too low in a data center, you're going to start getting static electricity. And that's no good for those NVIDIA chips. If the relative humidity is too high, you're going to start condensation on those expensive NVIDIA chips. So that's no good. So having exact relative humidity in these types of buildings is so critical. Same thing with operating rooms. Same thing with museums. You don't want condensation on those priceless paintings. So when I start telling people who are not in the industry what this software does, a light bulb lights up in their minds like, oh yeah, I can see why that's really important. So it is interesting how you can give examples to people who aren't in the industry who have no idea what psychrometrics is, and then they truly understand, yeah, this is important software to have and for engineers to have and use.
It goes back to energy management and water management are pretty much hand in hand.
Right.
We definitely have to manage our buildings and our spaces well to keep them healthy for the buildings, healthy for the occupants.
And equipment.
And the equipment, all of the above.
Also, yeah, comfort is very important, but so is saving energy. Part of the goal of our software is to help these technicians and engineers accurately size that equipment. Because if you do the old rule of thumb, which was ubiquitous before computers, you're going to oversize or undersize that equipment. And either way, it's going to use too much energy or destroy the equipment. So that's what's really, as I mentioned in my elevator pitch about Carmel, is the goal of our software is to help engineers and technicians design energy efficient buildings. And that's what it's really all about. Especially now, face it, the world is warming up and HVAC is only becoming more and more important. Think about it. Cities like Phoenix would not exist today without our industry. And companies like Carrier and Trane and York and Lennox, they're only growing because of the need for cooling throughout the world. And as a result, more and more power is being used by HVAC equipment in buildings. And therefore, it's much more important for them to be properly sized for energy efficiency reasons.
Yeah, you got to get it right.
Yeah.
In closing here, we want to make sure listeners learn more about you for follow-up. What's the best way to follow up to satisfy their curiosity about CarmelSoft? Is it your website?
Sure. Go to the website, CarmelSoft.com. Also, Hands Down Software, which, like I said, we do own. It's a separate site, but it's ours. So Hands Down Software. It's all one word. You can learn more at those two websites. Plus, we have the typical social media presence, LinkedIn, X, Facebook, and even some YouTube videos, but we're going to be doing more of those.
Any closing thoughts you'd like to share with any users? Probably a lot of whom haven't encountered you. Some of them have, I'm sure. Some of our listeners, but not all of them.
I'm going to bet a lot of our listeners have encountered them. They just don't know it.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll go to ASHRAE meetings and people always tell me, oh yeah, I downloaded your duct sizer app. I mean, for $5, but still it's a touch point. Like I said, hundreds of thousands of downloads of our apps over the years. So we have a lot of people using it. I guess final thoughts. I'm so proud to be in this industry. It's such an important industry. Like I said, the city of Phoenix wouldn't exist without us. But not only that, I've met so many great people. Being involved with ASHRAE, I've met some of the smartest people I've ever met. And it's a dynamic industry. There's always something new out there. And that's what makes it exciting. It's never static. It's so dynamic. I'm sure we've all gone to the AHR show every year in January, February. And I'm just in awe of the new technology and just even the existing technologies. So it's such a great industry, and I'm proud to be part of it. And I'm proud to do my part in developing software to help advance the industry a little bit.
You're definitely an important gear in this whole system. I thought so before, and now I'm like doubling down on that with all the explanation, the background you gave us.
Thanks.
And it comes from such strong roots, such a long family relationship with industrial service. So that's excellent.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on the podcast and being so willing to talk.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Building HVAC Science podcast. If you have any questions or wish to suggest a topic, please reach out to us at marketing@TruTechTools.com. That's TruTechTools.com. The Building HVAC Science podcast is a production of TruTech Tools Limited. Full disclosure, I'm the owner of TruTech. The opinions expressed are those of my guests, my co-host, myself, depending on who's speaking, of course. If you're in the market for any tools or test instruments mentioned in the podcast or just in general, take a look at what TruTech Tools has, TruTechTools.com. You can use the offer code HVACBS for a nice discount. Thank you for listening to and following us on Building HVAC Science. Until next time, take care.